Minahan.
Welcome to Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and guests unveil astrology's ancient archetypes that continually build the collective experiences in our unconsciousness. Get ready to find your free will from your roots in the stars.
Hi, I'm Sue Rose Minahan, host of Talk Cosmos. Tonight we're going to have the Capricorn Cosmic Collaboration panel, and we're talking about the 4-year seed chart of the United States of America Inauguration Restart. And that will be January 20th at noon in Washington, D.C. This is a moment of the collective, the conscious communication of values of community. It includes our personal lives of the citizens, business of any level, government as a whole, including the national foreign relations and policies. So it's an expansive 4-year viewpoint. And now we're ready for cosmic collaboration.
Investigating the deeper questions of this month's archetype and integrating spirit and matter for unified wholeness, this is your Cosmic Collaboration Panel.
I'm Sue Rose Minahan, host of Talk Cosmos, an evolutionary astrologer and consultant, plus a certified color energy coach. I explore creative expression as an artist, a musician, and write abundantly, stories to poetry. I love investigating mythology's language, philosophizing eternity, and I'm a perpetual student of life, seeing oneness of body, spirit of people, animals, and nature.
I'm Shannon Hayes, a certified evolutionary astrologer and consultant, including Mayan astrology. I'm a stargazer, and I work with animal spirit cards. I own a hair salon, I'm a nature lover, animal activist, and photographer.
And I'm Amanda Pierce, a soul-centered astrologer, astrological consultant, and empowerment-based meditation teacher. I have a BA in psychology, I'm a wellness enthusiast with a passion for healthy eating, and I enjoy creating new realities and shifting old paradigms.
And like the Sufi poet Rumi says, you are the entire ocean in a drop.
Oh boy, I love that phrase. Yeah, and the music. Well, to start off each talk, we introduce one little concept that we think really is important as far as the talk goes. It's not the whole thing. And I will just say that turning conflict into truth in order to grow and communicate as a collective is, I think, a theme that we will be breaching upon for all 4 years. And Shannon, what would, Shannon or Amanda, whichever. Yeah.
Well, I'll just say that at some point I'll talk like a little bit about the Mayan astrology just of the day, which is actually kind of interesting as the start of the path.
Oh, very good. And how is that, in a nutshell, is there an illuminating word with that path that you can share just to pique our interest?
Well, it's like it has a lot to do with like community and diplomacy. Let's just say that. Yeah,
we're moving on.
It totally relates, which is why I kind of brought it up.
I trust it. I just needed to know.
Yeah.
Thank
cool.
you. Yeah.
Yep.
And Amanda.
Well, I wanted to bring up the gift of anger that Mars brings us at this time. And we don't often think of anger as a gift. And especially in Western society, it's something that we generally frown upon, try and shove down a bit. But anger is what can motivate us and catapult us into something new. And it gives us that push to get out of some place that we're not happy with. So with all of this Taurus energy happening and Uranus in Taurus, which is shaking us up, it's the gift of Mars coming and meeting Uranus is that it could spark enough anger to really move us forward in those areas that are becoming disruptive. The areas where we're stuck and Uranus is trying to push us forward.
Yes, I appreciate both of your views that we're on a path and we're taking that shadow part, just as I said, and turning it into how to grow and truth. Because in the chart, and I can try to bring it up at some point, and again, just to repeat, it's 2021, of course, January 20th at noon in Washington, D.C. at the White House. And Mars and Uranus are conjunct at 6 degrees Taurus, right in the 12th house on the ascendant. That's part of a major feature. And I know that we've just experienced 6 months of Mars, haven't we? In Aries, in its own home territory. So we're familiar with action. And so really how we use that impetus for cause and defense, especially when we get associated with just the nodes right now that are in at least until the first part of this 4 years season, because it lasts for 18 months in Gemini, Sag, where we're confronting our voices and opinions of the Sag energy, which need to be expressed. But yet, how do voices that need to be heard, that haven't been heard, and everybody has the ability to be heard, anger is a key, how we can learn to talk with a dialogue. It seems like this is fodder. This is fodder, F-O-D-D-E-R, total food for growth.
And we just went through that period, like you mentioned, Sue, where Mars was in its own sign in Aries, but it was not a happy Mars because for 6 months it was retrograde. And so it wasn't getting to take action as much as it would have liked to or wanted to capitalize in Aries.
If I may just say, Amanda, yes, it was actually in retrograde for a couple of months, but there was this huge shadow time where it kept. Yeah, and I understand. Yeah. I'm prone to think of the big picture, and the little words are like, okay, we'll get. Yeah, I hear you. Exactly.
Yeah, and so it just came out of its shadow. I think it was January 2nd, and there was just all of this built up tension from that, because it just wasn't able to move forward as much. And we saw that on January 6th.
Yeah, absolutely. That's Shannon. Exactly what I wanted to say, was that like you could feel that, you could actually feel it in your body, like what was about to happen. And then at 29 degrees was the 6th, right? And that whole chaos went down, but it was also planned. So you see during the shadow, you've got all this other stuff going on. So it's not totally inactive. It's just, it's like it's almost like the shadow is getting prepared for something bigger, for something to really come out.
Time to burst it. And now we're seeing it. We have a lot of opportunity. And I think that is a big realization of the next 4 years. However, it is just looking at the chart. Maybe I can pull up that chart for people.
I have it up too. Yeah, but
I know we
show
do.
It. Yeah,
for some of, because we are on YouTube, but of course some people are still on podcast. But let's see if I can do that, and I will try to do this. Let's see. Anyway, let's see, where is it? At any rate, not to stop the whole conversation. Oh, here we go. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
Very
there
good.
It is.
Yeah,
it's a nice,
excellent.
simple chart. It does show that there's, as you can see for our audience that can see it, here's Mars and Uranus in Taurus. However, looking up other points of factors, we have, boy, there's so much here. We talked about conflict. And one of them is there's this Neptune conjunct Ceres, also conjunct. They're both at 18 degrees Pisces, and they are squaring
the nodes
at 90 degrees, the nodes. Yeah. So that's really looking at what is our, maybe Shannon, you can bring up a little bit about the Mayan in this context, if I might ask, or however, because I'm thinking that we were talking about the loss of innocence. Ceres is lost. Neptune can be, every sign has its shadow and positive light side, but there is some disillusionment and confusion, in our, until we find that path of working with the spirit and integrating it. And of course, we have the opinions and
right, and all the ideologies and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, and yeah, so the Mayan astrology for that day, like this is the day sign, right? It's 5 and 5 the number 5 is, it's about like as they say, 5 fingers, the hand, and the hands are for working, right? So it has a lot to do with work, with being able to put your efforts forward, right? With being able to put your efforts forward without overworking it, but still not relaxing, right? It's an application of using your energy towards a system. Okay, so 5 also, it's a lower number, so it doesn't have a huge amount of energy to it, but that also gives it the impetus to take what it does have and push it forward, right? It needs some effort. Okay, so we have the 5 where you need some effort, but because of the potential for obstructions and blockages, which talks a lot about, in astrology, the Neptune squaring the nodes, because Neptune can be blockage, it can be, I won't say like so much blockage, but it can be what you're not sure of what's happening. It can be confusion and, illusions and all that kind of stuff, right? So we have that going on in the chart that day. And then the is the road, the path, right? So it's a good day for like negotiations, for looking ahead for community, the welfare of the community. It's a day of diplomacy. Lovely. So even though there could be obstructions and stuff, you have the power of the foresight of the road, the path.
Very good. The light on the road. I love that. Community is the name of the game. And that really goes into, thank you. Also, the Mars. I remember in our earlier conversation, we brought up about this idea, because going forward, that martial arts, and I had, it says that one of the common aspect is being in harmony with nature. And that's the, not Mother Nature, but of human nature. And so therefore, rather than using force against force, this is going along with Mars too, for this path, combining our conversations here, we're working with one's energy to redirect the energy. And we can do this in so many ways. I think that's really a valuable concept. If we could start expanding some of those ideas here, thinking that we have a pathway that we're working, and we're working how to redirect that Martian energy of anger. So I bring that to both of you. I know that we had talked a little bit about nature and about that it will be important, and
especially with the Uranus and Taurus, right?
Yeah.
A lot of it is environmental issues are huge right now.
Yeah, we've got all of that. We've got that energy in in Taurus, and then all of that energy has just moved into Aquarius as well. And we just started that new Saturn-Jupiter cycle. So we're moving out of a lot of Earth energy, which was naturally grounding for us, and moving into this more air energy, which puts us more in our heads. So it's important for us to kind of start to do some more grounding work for ourselves to kind of help get us out of our head, keep us in the body more, and just taking care of our mental health a lot.
Right. Well, and if we look at the air energy too as part of our pathway, it's like, and figuring out, like Sue was saying earlier, we were talking about earlier about all the different, about voices that need to be heard, because the voice, and I mean, it's has to do with the throat, which is the Taurus, but we also have the air energy, right? And the ideas, because we're so polarized right now, it's a huge part of our problem in this country, is that there's so many people that don't feel like they're being heard. And I think that, like, with the change of guard in the White House, that this is a good time to actually to get different ideas to put together, so that more people feel like they are being heard, I guess.
I think I agree, but however, with the government as the positions ruling, the point I think so important, looking at the notes, and I put up the chart again, is Gemini looking at Mercury and Jupiter looking at the South Node in Sag. And of course, Sag is going to stay in Aquarius for the first part of this year, and then it goes into Pisces. It changes every year. So we're going to have quite a few ideology emphasis to experience through these 4 years. If we're looking at this chart as a seed chart for 4 years. And my point being that at this point, we use what we have, which I think is what we also kind of came up with on the path. We only have so much energy, but which at any point is maybe important or not important, but accept what it is. But words, how we use our meaningfulness and how we create our dialogues and how we listen to each other is increasingly paramount. And I think this idea too of listening through the body, we had brought this idea of a Taurus, because through the entire time we'll be here, Uranus in Taurus. And I know when I listen to newscast people, some of them speak pretty much in their heads, pretty rapidly. And in order to communicate, it is so important to feel, to be embodied, and centered from the external to the central part. So kind of drawing this whole chart together, I also noticed that going back to the strength of Neptune, that's also going to remain in Pisces as an outer planet for the entire time. As it progresses in the last decade, last 10
degrees.
Thank you, degrees. It will be focused, be in Cancer for those, I believe, and as a sub terrain, but to meditate, to really learn to receive our own counsel. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I love that, because that fits in so well with the Gemini North Node, Sag South Node. We're trying to move forward from a really rigid, opinionated energy, which is what Sag can be sometimes, and looking into going towards Gemini and finding new ways of doing things, new ways of thinking about things, gathering information, gathering data. But that square to Neptune is kind of it's a glitch in the smooth ride from the South Node to the North Node. So it's kind of a bump in the road, and it's asking us to look at that, like where do we have our own illusions about, or where are our beliefs caught in illusion, I think is a better way of putting it. And this happens for like everybody. This is not like a one side, like they're the bad ones, we've got it right kind of thing. It's happening to everybody. So it's just a human
really
thing.
A good point. I'm thinking it goes along with the values of Venus that really is a dispositor of Uranus. And along with that, two words jump out of me that go over and over, because it's so easy to point fingers. And as I have a sister that reminds me that you point 1, 3 face back to yourself, but patience and empathy are bifactors, and at the moment Mars is in Taurus, so that's a little easier to recognize there. So yes, communication is really part of it. And oh boy.
Well, Sue, so you mentioned about kind of working with the different forces that we have here. And it's kind of like, you can look at it like these are weather patterns, and different energies are coming forward for us that are either going to get in our way, or we can try and use them as constructively as possible. And so I love the idea of tapping into that empathy that's just out there, kind of in the air around us, to gather within. And I love the Neptune is in Pisces, so it's such a fluid sign, and there's a capacity to really go with the flow, which is really important because we've got so much fixed energy out there that can be difficult to roll with the punches sometimes. So just tuning into that energy of Neptune and finding the kind of fluid water quality that Pisces brings is helpful.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, and it's interesting too, because the fact that that change in element, it's like there's always like like I kind of see sometimes like the Neptune squaring the nodes as that kind of glitch between like also the change in the elements that's happening, because the sun is like at 0 degrees Aquarius, right? So you have all this like new energy coming in, and it's like, it's squaring Black Moon Lilith, and the Uranus is squaring the sun is being squared by Uranus, Mars, and the moon, pretty much, right? So there's like this like pull between like the air element, the all the different ideologies, and the wanting to make things better, with the energies where we've been at, where it's kind of like it's almost like kind of stuck a little bit, like we need the push and the pull, we need the exchange of ideas, but we need to do it like what you guys were saying before, in a little bit more of a fluid way, where everybody gets heard, where there has to be a way of making like all the different ideologies kind of come together, so that people at least feel more represented on some level or another. I think it's really important, because so much of our problem is we're such a huge country, and there are so many people that need to be heard, their needs met, right? I mean, and that Taurus is a lot about needs being met, right?
Eventually, it's a process. Eventually, we all have a moon. Yep. This one's in Aries in the last degree, which is the same as on the 5th or the 6th. But this fact of dignity, there are certain ideals. I think of a mission statement. They weren't written thinking, oh, well, we can't attain that. It's always with the highest ideal. And the highest ideal here is to really remember that every person has dignity. And if we can retool our brain to express words to begin with, because that's the tool that we have now with the North Node in for communicative process, to others, and to watch how we judge, because the shadow side of Sagittarius, having an opinion is wonderful, and it's meant to voice it. That's how we share it. It's a communicative energy, but yet we can become so endowed with that brilliance of determination. I mean, the strength of it, that we become righteous, and therefore if one falls into this condemnation of others, which is so human, but yet then other side shuts up or else retaliate in other ways. So it's a method of maybe like an addiction. If we have this old archaic way of beating each other over with a head, with a big, I have a club, you've got it. Well, then it's a matter of through enough bruises to realize, oh, there must be another way, and elevating. And the energy's there, the Aquarius energy that says it is of higher consciousness, to have tolerance. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And Jupiter is there just like really wanting that change. And then it's squaring Uranus at the same time. And Uranus is like, yes, let's bring that change, but we're going to do it in a way that destabilizes you, that kind of shakes your security levels.
And that gets back to the body. I know, Shannon, you brought up a lot of good points in an earlier little briefing that we had about getting into the body, because I think that's another energy that is a salvation point here, which of course Mars likes too. Speaking of Mars, they're conjunct, and there's Taurus energy, and they need to be expressed. So ways that...
Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. And I am leading you. But I was remembering that you were mentioning about aerobics, yoga, walks, all that type of,
strengthening the body, like you were saying earlier, martial arts, I think is going to be really important. I mean, like to have the stamina that we're going to need for the changes we're going to go through the next 4 years. It's like, it's going to require a lot of stamina, because there's just so much that's going to happen. And, and it's going to feel like everything's going fast. Every year it feels like it's faster and faster and faster, right? Time kind of speeds up. And then especially in Aquarius, it's like things kind of move fast, and then you've got the square to Uranus, which is like, hey, slow down a little bit, like get into your body a little more. Don't get so heady about things. But yeah, I think that being in the body helps with how we react to trauma and defensive behavior. Because if you notice, even like with the riot that went on, like how people got in their bodies in that rioting, like they had like costumes on and they had props, and like it was such a body rush, the whole thing. It was like really kind of interesting. And so it's like, I think that we need the help of our bodies.
And it is about time to take a little break here, but it is true that our body knows our truth. So we're going to have to learn how to communicate to that too. We'll be right back. This is Cosmic Collaboration with Amanda Pierce and Shannon Hayes and myself on January 16, talking about inauguration chart for 4 years. We'll be right back. Thanks.
While we take a break from this week's edition of Talk Cosmos, let's take a look at this cycle's archetype. We are currently in the yin period of Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, the furthest visible planet by the eye. By leaving a cycle based on meaningfulness and truth, Capricorn's energy establishes social boundaries in a structure incorporating rules, authority, and ethics. As a cardinal earth sign depicted by a sea goat climbing from the sea up to the top of a mountain, Capricorn overcomes fears through goals and ambitions to achieve mastery.
Greetings, this is Ben Mabry, and you're listening to Talk Cosmos on Alternative Talk 1150 AM, where we unveil astrology's ancient archetypes that continually build the collective experiences in our unconsciousness, consciousness, and superconsciousness.
Make us part of your daily routine. Alternative Talk 1150.
Hi again. We are returning, and I think one factor we could bring up is this thing of new resources. We talk about opportunity, and it was brought up that, again, that Renaissance actually occurs. And of course, this intense struggle. We're all going through COVID. This is a backdrop. We're learning how to take control of something that we haven't didn't know how to take control of. And not that we have control, but yet we have some tools. Yet, yeah, new resources and helping to build away from total individuality, where my way is the highway on some framework, to rather, how can my way help and fit with the collectiveness, of the, because community is really the drawing card for Aquarius.
Well, one of the things that I've been thinking about is how limitation breeds creativity, and so we've been extremely limited in this past year with the virus and what we can do, and it's been really uncomfortable, and just for everybody, and that it's that type of environment though that breeds new developments and things. And so they've seen that it's been shown that after a period of pandemic, there is a renaissance period. So we can look forward to that, and kind of bring our own levels of creativity out into the world, and be hopeful for what new is going to be coming, because this isn't going to be our world forever.
It does remind me that with Neptune, which is the expanded beyond what we even know, no boundaries, that is a co-creativity that's being required of us. Yes, so that, and one way to resolve frustration, I know I like to write poetry, and I draw or paint, and many of us, have our creative outlets, that's one reason, is to work through it, to create something out of distress. It's very cathartic.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and the other thing that's interesting too is like how because so many people are out of work and have had to recreate themselves job-wise. It's like there's all sorts of like interesting like little businesses, and people are doing things more and more online. Like they're opening up little like shops, they're selling their artistic projects, and it's that I find really interesting. I think one of the kind of cool things is like about, we were talking about Aquarius and stuff too, is the whole online, not just social media, but how people are not only communicating online, but they're doing business online as well, right? So not so many people have to travel to work their jobs anymore. They can work from home, they can work online. I think that's kind of a wave that's going to end up really taking off. I think it's really going to save a lot of people that probably had to leave jobs because they could no longer work in their place, in their places of work. So they're doing it out of their own home and through computers.
Well, and Aquarius, it carries that genius energy, and that is a type of creativity. So that's something that the collective has available to us now. And I think we're just going to run with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're generally, yes. And that supports the idea that essentially we are in that great conjunction, the grand mutation, going back to the talk of Jupiter that now is ahead of Saturn, but they're both when they conjunct on the 21st of December for this 20-year connection and a 200-year of air. So we're leaving that physicality of form as a go-to focus. And of course, incorporating, just the air, the different factors that Libra, Gemini, and Aquarius will bring for relationships. To produce.
Well, one other thing I wanted to say about the moving into the air era is that I think that our breath is going to become one way that we can really help ourselves, I guess, is like deep breathing, any type of breath work that helps to really oxygenate your body. I think that can be very healing in this time, especially with all of the Taurus energy as well, healing the body. We just came out of a big period with a lot of Capricorn energy, and Capricorn is known to really step up in times of crises and kind of shove its emotions down so it can get the job done. And so we're shifting a bit out of that Capricorn and more into Aquarius, which is a sign of trauma. So we're going to start to see some PTSD symptoms coming forward for people that have gone through a lot of trauma. And whether we're seeing that now, I think some people, sure, but I think it may be a while before we really start to see that. And using the breath as a way to heal and get ourselves back in our bodies and really take advantage of this air energy that's available to us.
It's crucial. And I remembering importantly as we work together, this very factor of trauma, people experience it just like fear. They experience trauma very differently. There's the fight, flight, freeze. There's being numb to shock, the shock value, I mean, I think a lot of us are knowing some element of this even now, trying to process. It takes time. And it also takes that one-to-one person being with them. These emotions, it's important to reconnect all of that, to be aware.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, because I think it's really true. I think that, since like COVID has started, it's like no one really got the fact that we were really in a pandemic, I think people were just kind of hoping and praying that like one day, like we'd get back to normal. Right. But that's not what's happening. And in fact, it's actually mutating. And so like, I see some of that, like Neptune squaring the nodes also is like the mutation of this virus, which is happening over in Europe right now. We haven't experienced that yet. We're already traumatized. And so many people don't get like trauma and how subtle it can be, trauma's insidious, it's like, you don't always get it because it's like, you go from like being shocked to numbed to however, like, whatever coping mechanism we have. Right. So, just to like day to day cope and not be focused on the trauma takes a lot of energy. Right. So I think what you were saying about the PTSD is like a really important thing to look at right now, is because I really think that as a country, we are traumatized. We are in PTSD, and we've had 4 years of total chaos and craziness that we have as a background to COVID. And and
it doesn't stop at COVID.
No, it doesn't stop at COVID.
Part of this, but as far as a direction, thinking of this path as we move forward, we have these elements of focus and nurturing, looking at the side, the gifted side of Neptune, for one, that offers nurturing, and the moon, of course. The moon right now is in Aries, and I think that nurturing part of really working one-to-one and in small groups, like Aquarius is community. It doesn't have and it can be of any size. There's many pods in a large, I'm talking to both here, in a community. And so I'm thinking that if we learn to really stop and connect with other people. Like even through COVID, I was listening to another talk. In fact, they're going to be on East-West astrologers will be on the 30th. There's a panel, and they're talking about 2021 and beyond themselves. And what one of them was saying was that you can still talk with somebody, have your mask on, turn your head, drink your drink, and turn around. Or you can still stop and say, how are you, even with a mask on.
Of course.
So I think, yeah, exactly. And so remembering these parts of how to remain human, because it is a matter of humanity. And I think that was another word that they brought up that I'm just throwing out to you both. This isn't to one of you, okay? This is to both of you and to our audience, that I'm talking about a direction of focus, because again, the ideal helps. It's like, that's what we work towards. And this sense of the commonness of the needs of humanity will help us get through
the trauma of the time. No, exactly. Well, I notice it too. It's like, face masks are going to be a reality for us for quite a long time. But the thing that's interesting that made me like think of what you were just saying, Sue, was like, so I was out today and I went to a coffee shop, and it was a new coffee shop, right? But it's like just going in and like seeing people doing normal things like having coffee and stuff, or, sitting around talking, but with masks on. It's like, it's kind of interesting. It's human to have to figure out how to get by on a day-to-day basis. It's like, how do you do that wearing masks? How do you do that in a time during COVID? It's like, it's really true. It's like I see people trying to make the best of the situation however they can. Like they smile at you, and you learn to look at people's eyes more, which is what's so interesting.
I love it.
It's like, because you can't see their mouth, it's like you're
through the eye.
Exactly, you're making more eye contact with people. And that's what I noticed. Like, it's like, sure, this whole thing really kind of stinks, and like, we're not living in our quote unquote normal as we knew it, but this is normal as we're going to learn how to deal with it.
Exactly.
But the one thing I think is cool, even though it's a drag, wearing masks, is more eye contact. I think it's a human necessity.
I like it.
I love that,
Shannon.
Yeah.
I've always.
I was just going to say, it kind of fits in with the limitation breeds creativity kind of thing.
Right.
Humans are so ingenious at what we can handle and move through and find new ways to do things. And how much more comfortable is it now to wear a mask? Like, it's not as big a deal as it was when this all started. Not that I want to continue wearing a mask, but I will.
Right.
And I think that we're going to see this mask wearing just who knows how long. It could be that everybody starts wearing them when flu season comes around, kind of thing, like in the future, once this dies down. But at least we're in a much more comfortable place. It's kind of like how they wear masks in Asia right now. Like, that's a normal thing for them. And they do it as a way to protect the community,
Exactly.
It's community driven.
Exactly.
If I may say, this is again, returns to the first beginning, which was turning conflict to truth to grow. It's an example that you brought up there. And interestingly too, Shannon, and of course Amanda, but Shannon, since bringing it up about the familiarity, it reminds me that Taurus, which we're all experiencing, loves the familiar. It loves the comfort. And it is extraordinary what becomes familiar and what small things make familiar. Now, of our panel, two of us, both Shannon and myself, have moved from in opposite directions, in several time zones. So we have been experiencing this on a daily basis, how to purge. It's really very true, because Pluto is still in Capricorn. It is still but it is looking now to Saturn in Aquarius. And so that is a distinctly different energy cycle than just in its own sign of Capricorn. And it wants structure. We still need the tactile. We still need the touching. That's where nature and our bodies are so important, and all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting too in the inauguration chart how Pluto is conjunct the midheaven. Like, this is going to be a very important energy, and it's just kind of like echoing the fact that we're coming up on the United States Pluto return. Like, it's imminent, and it's going to be very visible to us in the next 4 years.
Yeah, it's transformation. And we're government, rules, regulations. Well, if we have lots of voices, and if we are approaching our return next year, starting in February 2022, exact, for 3 hits, conjunctions, then we are so close to the very apex of it, but it's all it takes time and transformation. And we're looking at all that energy that created our country back at the revolution. And how many voices were there? There were some people that still wanted the king in England. There were some people that wanted slaves. And there were some people that said, no, 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 we're going to try these other ventures. And then, of course, there were the ones that weren't even listened to, the Native Americans and all the other parts of people. And the different nationalities at that time, allegiances were so different. You were this nationality or that nationality, and religions and everything was quite segregated. So we're being introduced to this whole theme to find out, how do we prune our tree? What are we ditching and turning into a butterfly?
Yeah, exactly. Well, life is all about change. And with that Pluto up there, it's like we're going to go through more change as a country, which we have to, like you were saying. There's so many of us, and there's so many voices that need to be heard. And there's, there's COVID, there's, job changes, there's people out of work, there's a lot of people still on unemployment. There's a lot of things that have to happen. I think that, the change in governance is a good start. I think that we're on like a good track as far as that goes. But yeah, it's like, we're going to continue to change and grow because one size doesn't fit all. And we're a country with many different types of people, ethnic backgrounds, religious ideologies and views. We're one of the most diverse countries in the world. We have people from everywhere.
It's true. And
it's a lot to work with,
It is challenging. It always was challenging, except the ideal. That's where, if we can capture the ideal, it makes everybody enthused. And looking at this, we have the sun at 0 degrees, Aquarius. And of course, just to re-identify, there is Saturn still at 3, and then Jupiter at 7. And that energy is squaring by conjunction, inexact, of course, the Mars, Uranus, and with the moon of our emotions. So there's quite a bit of significant energy. And what I wanted to bring up was the fact of the sun, which rules our ego. So we as a whole, our umbrella of self that wants that elevated consciousness, it's just at the very beginning of it, that's looking for restructuring, which the Great Conjunction does, restructures our social, and it's in Aquarius, which is social. And it's looking in conflict how to grow through the emotionality with the moon, of course, our stories of our pain, of our path, with the direction of our security and our sudden changes of innovation and direction. And this well, there's so much more with Uranus. But that's also a signature in our natal chart, although very wide. We have that. Oh boy, I'm going to stop sharing it and go back to you guys.
Well, I also wanted to note that the United States is about to experience a Neptune opposition as well. So, and that I just checked. It looks like that's going to happen in May of this year. So we've got Neptune squaring the nodes transit-wise. That's happening, and that's happening for everybody. And so everybody's ideals, where we get caught in illusion, where we get caught in denial, all of that is up for review. And it's going to be especially up for the United States. Like what do we think the American dream is? How are we, do we need to revise this? Do we need to get a little more realistic? And where are our illusions about what it means to be American and what it means to be the United States of America? And kind of letting the things that just no longer serve us go, letting it go.
I keep hearing many times, many questions like, what's our role? Who are we as people? Our values? It does get down to that. And I know there was a study that I have related in other talks, and unfortunately I don't remember the name, but it was a 2-year study, and it was how to help and heal the constitution of it. And one of them was making Election Day a national holiday that everybody was required to vote. One was to change senator terms to maybe 6 years or something. Another one was to add House of the Representatives, like 50%.
Or getting rid of the Electoral College,
right?
So much up in the air right now.
It was a group that was very diverse. I want to mention next week on the 23rd will be the Aquarius Moonbeam team, and we're adding a new member, Catherine Metcalf from Illinois. So there'll be 4 of us. And the following week on the 30th will be Seattle-based astrologers. They're called the East-West Astrologers Panel, and they just had a panel today, and they will have a follow-up on the 30th where they will continue to talk. And I think that'll be a call-in event. We'll have some publicity about that. And East-West Books is part of Ananda, which is national, which is a wonderful group. And tonight I am talking with the Cosmic Collaboration panel of Amanda Pierce down at the lower portion of there and of Seattle, and Shannon Hayes on the top corner of Franklin, Indiana. And we're talking about the inauguration. Well, in Indiana, you're on the East Coast, not Midwest. I'm in Hawaii in Kailua Kona, and I often thought Indiana, well, that's got to be back there on Montana or someplace. No.
I know.
It's East Coast. So we have different places to experience. It's interesting because this inauguration is an event that's part of our Constitution, and we have a nation that has great promise and purpose, and it's how are we going to work collaboratively, very much like this cosmic collaboration. And it is that community focus that not losing anything. It's just like in the axis, it's that Leo part. How can we manifest ourselves as part of the group and care?
The more that we can capitalize on the positive energies of the astrological weather happening right now, the more we are contributing to the whole.
Yeah.
As a drop within the ocean.
Absolutely. Well, and keeping an eye on the future, not getting caught up in short-term planning, which can be just so disastrous. You have to, like the whole Aquarian signature is about, about community, about uplifting, elevating everybody to a higher their highest that they can be, kind of thing, right? So I mean, it's, we have to keep that in mind, like how to make things better for everyone, including everyone's, as much as they can, ideologies.
That works
and
really
needs.
well because the USA national moon is in Aquarius. So there is a deep part of us that knows the trauma inherited, but also knows the genius and also knows the kindred of one spirit. So yay! I always have to throw my arms up. It's so exciting. I'm so glad to reconnect even at this distance.
I know, right?
Well, isn't that the gift of Aquarius as well? Like connecting through distance and still like feeling that connection.
Right, we can all see each other without masks.
Yeah, I was thinking about that as you were talking. That's right.
Right.
We love our audience. Thank you so much. And please comment, and we'll be back. Cosmic Collaboration. We'll be back for Aquarius pretty quick. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Yes, thanks everyone.
I know. Nice seeing you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and guests unveil astrology's ancient archetypes that continually build the collective experiences in our unconsciousness. Be sure to tune in next Saturday at 6 p.m. to continue finding your roots in the stars.
The views expressed on this program